Hey everybody, this is Grant, your friendly OpenShift team member, and today is a great day because we launched the pro tier of OpenShift 3. In this little video, I thought it would be cool if I walked through the process that I took to migrate my existing blog site that I deployed in 2013 on OpenShift Online 2 over to the OpenShift Online 3 pro tier. So let's get started. First thing I want to do is show you my blog. It is www.runcloudrun.com. As you can see, it's a pretty fancy blog. I haven't updated it since 2015, and it's very not pleasing to the eye. But this is the site that we're going to be working on. So the first thing we're going to do is log into my blog site, which is WordPress. And to do that, I'm going to go to the fully qualified domain name that OpenShift 2 uses. And that is gshipleyonpaz.rhcloud.com. So there we can see my blog site. And then I'm going to go to the WP admin login. I'm going to log in with my username and password here. And I have a loud keyboard. Sorry about that. It is going to be a little bit noisy. But I'm going to do all of this in real time. So as you can see, I have 13,772 comments here that are all spam comments, guarantee you. Yes, indeed, all spam comments. I just haven't kept up with my blog, and so they're all in there. They're unapproved, so they're not showing on the site. But that's going to be a pretty big download once we get into this. So once I go to plugins, what I want to do is go to add a new plugin. And I'm going to search for all-in-one WP migration. And I'm going to search for that. And I see a all-in-one WP migration. That's the one I want to install. This is the one that I personally use. It's just a personal preference. So I'm going to click on install that. And once that is downloaded and installed, I'm going to activate it. Let me make this font a little bit bigger for you. There we go. So now this plugin is activated, so I have all-in-one WordPress migration. I'm going to export my site, and I am going to export it to a file. It's going to check a few things. And this is going to back up my entire WordPress site for me to allow me to import it to a newer version. Now, I am using a really old version of WordPress here, so I'm going to take the opportunity to upgrade to a more recent version of WordPress as well. So you can see my block size 722 megs. So I'm going to click on download that, and I'm going to save that file to my file system. So I'm going to click on save file. And I'm just going to throw it on my desktop real quick and save that. So that is going to download. I do have a gigabit internet connection, so it should happen pretty quickly here. And it's already done, so gigabit to the rescue. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And now I'm done with OpenShift v2. So let's head over to OpenShift.com. And I'm going to log in to the brand new Pro tier. Let me authenticate with my information here. All right, so I am logged in on the Pro tier here. It's a brand new Pro tier account. First time that I'm personally using the live Pro tier account. So let's click on New Project here. We're going to call this WordPress. Or actually, let's these have to be unique. So I'm going to call this G Shipley WordPress. And I'm just going to put my WordPress site as the display name and click on Create. And that's going to create the project for me. Now, I know WordPress uses MySQL. So the next thing I want to do is just add MySQL to my OpenShift account. So I'm going to select MySQL Persistent. And I'm just going, for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to use WordPress as my connection username. Let me make this bigger for you so you can see it better. Oh, sorry. Database service name I'm going to leave as MySQL connection password. And put WordPress, put in WordPress as the root user password. and I'm going to call my database schema WordPress. And here I can set the volume capacity as well if I know my WordPress instance is going to use a lot of data. Now, if I left all of these blank, it would auto-generate some random ones for me that are pretty secure, but this is good enough for the purposes of this little demo. I'm going to click on Create. And so now OpenShift is spinning up a persistent MySQL database for me. And let's go back to Overview. And while that's spinning up, what I want to do is get the WordPress source code. So I'm taking a little different approach. I actually want to deploy from the WordPress GitHub site. And so to do that, what I'm going to do is click on Add to Project, click on PHP 7.0. I'm going to use the latest version of PHP. And then it's asking me for a name, and I'm going to call it WordPress. And then I need to find github.com/WordPress. And I want to find the WordPress repository. There it is. I'm going to copy that URL and go back over to OpenShift, and I'm going to paste in that Git repository. But now I'm going to click on Show Advanced Options. And here under Git Reference, I can specify the branch, tag, or commit that I want to use. So if we go back over to GitHub and click on the releases, we can see all of the releases. 4.8's the latest. And so I'm going to use that. But if you're migrating an older version of WordPress and you want to stick to that version of WordPress, you can put in any version you want there. But I'm going to use 4.8 because I want to take this opportunity to go to the latest version. And then I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I'm just going to click on Create. And that is going to download WordPress and build a Docker image on the fly for me. And that happens through the magic of Source2Image. Source2Image is a project inside of OpenShift that will allow developers and users to take advantage of containers and orchestration without having to know the details about either one of them. So they can just talk source code to the platform. The platform will examine that source code, build the source code, and create a Docker image on the fly based on that source code. Now, WordPress is a pretty large project, and so it's running through the build here, and it created an image. It's pulling down the PHP 7.0 Rails 7 image as a base image right now. And I know that by looking at this. So that's pretty important for you to understand on the Pro tier, in that you're getting Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7 under the covers here, which is crucial if you're wanting to run stable and secure production grade systems. And so we took that Rails 7 PHP base image, and we're now layering our source code, being WordPress, on top of that image. And once that image has been created, which it has, we're pushing that image up to the private image repository that we ship as part of OpenShift. Now today, that image is a Docker formatted image, or Docker format compatible image, and so that's what we're using, and it's almost done. So if we go back to the overview page here, we should see the WordPress image actually start to be deployed. And there we go. So we'll give it just a second here to scale up to 1. And now, once we're going to have the WordPress image up and running, we want to group it with the MySQL database. And I'll show you that once WordPress finally decides to come up. There it is. It's up and running. So what we want to do is just click on Group a Service here, and we're going to group it with MySQL. And so it puts these two things together in the web console. So it's easier to understand that these two things go together. What's also cool about OpenShift Online Pro Tier is that you have your metrics right here in the dashboard beside your pod. So I can see my MySQL is using 300 megs of memory and 0.006 CPU cores. All right. So at this point, we have WordPress installed and we have a persistent database installed. The next thing I want to do is actually create a persistent volume for our WordPress content directory. And this is where things like uploads will go, or plugins and themes will go. So let's go ahead and do that by clicking on the Storage tab. And we can see we have a MySQL persistent storage here that came with our database. But I'm going to create a new storage, and I'm going to use EBS as the backing store here, and I'm going to call this WordPress storage, and I'm going to give this 5 gigs of memory, or 5 gigs of disk space actually. I'm going to click on create. So now I have a new storage class, or a persistent volume, that I can then claim to use in my container. So that's what we want to do now. We want to go back to our deployments. So applications deployments. I'm going to select my WordPress deployment because that's where I want to mount that persistent storage. And I'm going to click on Actions, Add Storage. And so here I can see my persistent volumes that are available. I want to use this new 5 gig one that we just created. And I want to mount this in opt approot source WP content. I just happen to know that that's where the WordPress content directory goes. And all this looks good. So I'm just going to click on add. Now you'll see what happens is OpenShift is doing a rolling deployment of my WordPress application, because it now has persistent storage, and we made a claim on that. So we'll give this just a second to complete, and then we'll log in and do just a few wrap-up items. Okay, our persistent storage has now been mounted into our WordPress container. So we just want to do a few little configuration changes here real quick. So I want to go into my pod, and I want to open up a terminal. And this may be hard for you to see, but I am going to cd into the WP content directory, and there's nothing there. Now WordPress expects a few directories to be there. So I'm going to make a directory called plugins, I'm going to make a directory called themes, and I'm going to make a directory called uploads. Then I'm going to go up a directory, and we are going to vi the WP config sample PHP file. And all I want to do here is add a new variable, because we're using persistent storage with group writable permission. I need to, modify WordPress to let it know, hey, I am going to be doing this group level permission thing. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is just add a define, and it's going to be called fs_method, and then a comma, and I'm going to set that to direct and close that out. Now, because that's in the sample file, when we create our WP config file for real as part of the install, that should get copied over into that. All right, so at this point we have our persistent database installed. We have WordPress downloaded, running as a Docker image in a Kubernetes pod, and we've added persistent storage to that. We've created a few directories in our WP content directory. So now let's just finish the installation of WordPress. So I'm going to click on the link right here, and it's going to tell me, hey, you need to configure WordPress. Let me make this bigger for you. So I need to supply the database name, username, password, and the host. Click on Let's Go. The database name is WordPress. The username for MySQL is set to WordPress. The password I set to WordPress. And the database host. This is interesting because it's not on localhost. We deployed a persistent MySQL database inside of Kubernetes on OpenShift, so we need to get that host name. So the way you do that is you go back to your OpenShift console, you go to Applications, Services. We want the MySQL service. Notice it has the IP address here as well, but we want to use the host name. So I'm going to click on MySQL, and right here is the internal host name that I can use to talk to WordPress. So I'm going to bump back over here and paste that in and click on Submit. And it says, all right, I'm able to talk to the database. Let's run the install. So now it's asking me for a few things. I'm just going to type in blah and a username of admin and a password of test123. Configure that. Here's my email. And I'm going to install WordPress. And that's where that WP config file is actually generated. So let's just hop back over to the terminal real quick and just make sure that our file system definition actually made it into that WP config file. So I'm just going to VI that real quick. And here we go. It's right here. So great. Our sample file did indeed work. So now we can go back to our blogging site and we can log in with admin test 1, 2, 3. So now what I want to do is I want to click on plugins. And this is on the new server, remember. Click on add new. And I am going to search for all-in-one WP migration. And here we go. Wow, this looks a lot different than the old site, doesn't it, when you install plugins? So I'm just going to click on install now. And that's installed. And let's activate it. So there we go. We have it activated now. All right, so now that we have our all-in-one WordPress migration installed, I'm going to click on import. And then I'm going to import from a file. And I saved this on my desktop, so we're going to select it here. And it's going to upload that 700 and something meg file up to OpenShift Online version 3 Pro tier account into my WordPress container. Now this is fine because I do have persistent storage and a persistent database there. And we're just going to let that finish here. Okay, it's almost done. Now it's checking the compatibility of my plugins that I have installed, and it's going to tell me, hey, if I do this, it's going to overwrite all my database, my media, my plugins, my themes, everything. But that's okay because this is a brand new WordPress installation, and this is actually what we want. We want to migrate over, so I'm going to click on continue, and it's going to go through and restore all these files for me. So all my plugins, all my themes, all of that information, as well as all my blog posts, comments. Now it's going to load the database. So essentially under the covers, I imagine this just did a MySQL dump and then it's doing it again. Now it's telling me that you must save your permalink structure twice. So I'm going to do that. So, oh, look at this. Because I'm upgrading versions, it's telling me that a database update is required. So I'm going to click on that. And it's been upgraded. So now let me log in with admin test 1, 2, 3, and this is going to fail. Why did that fail? It's because now I have been migrated, and so I need to use my existing username and password for my WordPress site, and then I can authenticate. So look at that. My 13,000 comments came over. My plugins are there. I want to save these permalinks twice. Let me just save that. I don't know why it wants me to do it twice, but okay. And so now, if I click on visit site, here's the big reveal. Look at that. It looks exactly the same. runcloudrun.com. Oops, it's www. So there it is, and there it is. Now, if I obviously made this the same size, it would look identical. Notice this is Run Cloud Run, and this is running on the new OpenShift Online 3 Pro tier. So what other things do I need to do to quickly wrap up this? Let's first assign my host name to it. If I wanted to use Run Cloud Run and migrate over to this. So the way I would do that is I would expose a service to what's called a route. So if I go onto services and I use WordPress, I can say create a route, and I want to call this Run Cloud Run, and the host name is www.runcloudrun.com. And if I wanted a security cert or something like that, I could do it. And so now I have two routes for this. And if I go to my overview, we can see that this is Run Cloud Run and one other route. Now, I would obviously have to update the DNS record at my registry to point to the correct IP address now, or the correct CNAME. But look at this. This is pretty awesome. So we can see WordPress is consuming 222 megs of memory. Here's the amount of traffic it's using. Anytime I want to look at the site, I can come in here and pop it open. Let me log out. Oops, log out. There we go. Now we can go back to this and I won't be logged in to get a real view of it. So pretty awesome. I was able to do that fairly quickly. All of this running inside of the new OpenShift Online 3 Pro tier that we launched today. So if you haven't signed up, go ahead and do so. And I hope you guys enjoy using the platform. Thanks a lot.